want to thank Ashesi University for inviting me to come and give this speaker series on the place of higher education in the larger entrepreneurship ecosystem. For the purpose of today, we're going to have just a conversation on what this is all about for the first maybe 20, 25 minutes. And then I will now go into a short series of Q&A in case you have some question. And then we'll move on to a form of self-assessment, entrepreneurial self-assessment. When we come back, we'll have a time for Q&A again. And then hopefully by the time we finish today's session, we should have, key takeaways, to work on an individual action plan. So I want to welcome you on behalf of Ashesi University for this time that you have given up, to come and be enlightened and to be empowered for what is happening in higher education. Okay, so I'm going to start with just a quick introduction about myself, and then we'll move on. So just a little bit about myself. I'm from Oxford Brookes University in the business school. I'm an academic. I teach, I research, and also a leader. So in the area of my teaching, I'm primarily in the area of international management, and that means international organizations. I'm also in the area of law. So I straddle between management and law. So the subject that I teach are in the area of managing international organizations, international market and competition, and corporate and business law, both at undergraduate and postgraduate. For the purpose of research, my key area is on entrepreneurship, and that entrepreneurship looking at competencies, development and role models, university-industry interaction, spin-out, and energy policy. And you will see here a book which I co-edited back in 2018 on energy in Africa, policy management and accountability and sustainability. In the area of leadership, both at the faculty level, that is within the business school and university central, I'm very active. I'm passionate about issues on diversity, inclusion, and equity. So I sit on various steering groups, steering committee. The faculty, I the vice chair for our Antenna Swan Gender Equality, which is like accreditation, as well as our Race Equality Charter, which we are putting together at the moment. Back in November, December last year, for the first time, I'm really passionate about it to tell you, I won the Brooks Feedback and Communication Award. So these are award which has been selected and awarded by the students. So I really value this award. And of course, outside of my academics, I'm a public speaker. I sit on a number of advisory board, both on academic and also on management in terms of gender equality and equity. I'm also very much involved in community engagement, contributing to my community, whether that is in terms of student engagements, study programs, and leadership programs. I put out these books because they all contribute to what I'll be discussing today. A number of work around university interaction and university innovation actually kickstarted from my PhD student, actually, who has finished now doing correction on university industry collaboration, a paradigm shift in Nigeria, looking at Nigeria as an example. And myself and my colleague, we organized a conference back in 2018 on, we call it COSINOS, just looking at interaction between university, industry, and collaboration. And then out of that, we came up with a special issue in kind of a journal publication. And then recently, this book came out, which is Entrepreneurial Universities, creating institutional innovation in times of turbulence. These are quite important. And of course, I'm sure you get a copy of this slide, and I've also posted it on, online as well. So you can, actually place an order to buy it. I'm currently looking at a research project, which is a funded research project by the British Academy. And I'm looking specifically at the women participation in the Nigerian University spin-out. And we know that spin-out is one of the mechanism that we can promote entrepreneurial universities. So I'm particular about the role that women academics play, especially in STEM, and how they are able to commercialize their research within the Nigerian higher education. So that is the funded project which I'm currently working on. So I wanted to begin this conversation basically. Sorry, I think I pressed on the wrong. Okay, so looking at today's seminar by asking few questions, and that questions is about why do we need entrepreneurial and innovative higher education institutions? And I'm sure you have some ideas as well. You have some maybe pointers that you have been thinking about and mulling over as an institution. I understand I have audience from higher institutions and private sector, which is beautiful. And you'll probably be asking what constitutes an entrepreneurial and innovative higher education institute? And what are the likely consequences or implications for institutional change? Some of these questions, they're going to straddle into what I'll be talking about later on as well. But suffice to say that, why do we need that? If we look at what is actually happening in the last 5 to 10 years, we have seen paradigm shift even in the landscape of globalization, and with the intensity of changes in what is happening in knowledge production, there has been a lot of demand and tension and increasing demand from higher education in terms of how are our universities and research institutes, how are they contributing added value to the economy, the macro environment? So I live in the UK, and we can see clearly the implication of Brexit, and now with the COVID-19, and the pressure that even that is having on the ecosystem generally. So again, it calls for a new ways of looking at the microeconomic environment. It also raises the question of our teaching and learning. How are we actually developing our curriculum to be more adaptive, to be more relevant to the workplace, to the labor market? How are we developing our academics, for example, to be entrepreneurially minded as well? So it's not just all about teaching, but also you look at maybe the research, even you look at community engagement. And so there's so many things that, again, helps us to understand and to begin to think about the need for universities, higher education to be more entrepreneurial. Definitely the government is asking and putting more pressure on higher institutions to do more for the purpose of students, because they know that the workplace cannot accommodate, students, and so students also needs to be employable, self-employed, become, employers of labor. So there is great demand on universities to do more. So what constitutes an entrepreneurial and innovative higher education institution? What constitutes could be a number of things. So for example, our organizational dynamics, for example, the way universities or higher education are being set up, could be one area that constitutes how a university is seen as entrepreneurial. I'll give quite a few examples from our university, what we are doing. And really, it has taken us a long time, and we're still work in progress. But like I said, these are just some pointers, which I'm going to try and explain later on. But by the time you look at the why and the element of entrepreneurial and innovative higher education, there are implications, and that implications are institutional change. We know clearly that no change can properly develop without having the high level commitments from our various institutions. Some are very much bureaucratic, red tape, while other institutions, they are very creative, very flexible, very entrepreneurial, and that makes ideas, initiatives easy, to implement. So these are maybe few questions that I want you to begin to think about. And how does it, how do these questions play out in your respect, in your institutions? And how are you able to navigate, through the structure and the dynamics of your organization? So I have not come with an answer. It's opportunity for us to think together and to share maybe example best practices from other institutions that you can take back to your respective institution and begin to make a change, at least begin the conversation to make that change. So I am hoping that by the end of today's seminar, at least any of these three you will have obtained. One is to develop a better understanding of the role of higher education institutions in enterprise ecosystem. We want to understand the various ways universities interact with businesses, research institutes, and government. The government is important. That's why university, industry, government interaction, not just the university and industry. The role that government plays is also very, very crucial. And finally, to look at the various avenues, through which higher education, have either been promoting entrepreneurship or can begin to promote entrepreneurship and innovation if they have not started that process. That is my hope that at least we'll be able to take away at the end of today's session. So let's now look at what is this ecosystem. What does it actually look like? I'm sure this is no surprise to many of you. We are all in the microenvironments, things that surround us. And we can see these four main areas. So these are really the businesses, the industry, and the industry is composed of the large organization, the SMEs, the micro, the startup, and of course, all that has, family business, and also capital venture investors that are putting money, injecting money into these businesses. And outside of that, you can also see other players or actors. So the business acceleration and accelerators here. The institutions here could be a combination of maybe research institutes, capital venture, capitalist investors, other institutions, and university. So this is quite broad, the way this first diagram is demonstrated here. And then you have the government on this side. And it's important because I look at research on university, industry, government. And so we know that through policies and regulations, governments in various countries of the world, they are injecting money and trying to regulate, well, not regulate, put in policies that enable universities and higher education to be able to help students to be more entrepreneurially minded, be creative innovation so that they can reduce their graduate unemployment. So the government, do have a major role to play. And then here is another diagram. If this one sounds a bit perhaps too busy, there's a better way of illustrating this, that again, connect all the dots together. But here I've broken it down into maybe 5 main areas. The risk capital and investment. So these are private sector that are injecting money into higher education. These are highly, risky area. And they could also be working with the government, in collaboration, maybe through joint venture. And the government and ministries, of course, the higher education ministry, every country will have a Ministry of Education in your country. And they have a policy and regulation regarding higher education generally and polytechnics and other research institutes. So the university, I circled them here just like I did here, but it wasn't very clear here. But here we know that universities are a major stake, of course, a primary stakeholder when we talk about higher education. But government are also key stakeholder because really they regulate the university. They set them up. In some countries, you have federal universities, state and private universities. So, and the government has policy and of course ministry as well. But apart from the government, the university, then we have the private sector. So the multinational corporations that are injecting money and adding value to our GDP, our local economy. And of course, they are recruiting graduates into the various businesses and operations within their organizations. And then here we have, this is where the startup, the micro and the macro, just like we see here, which was much developed here. We see the different types of businesses, SMEs here. So we have this. And also, if you want to look it further, it may be also even here, we have the non-governmental organization, the NGOs, that also they are being creative, but they are not for-profit organization. And I will explain that how other model will help us to understand the interaction between policy, universities and private sector, and that private sector could be for profit and not for profit. You can see the linkages. So none of them is standing alone. And that's really what the ecosystem is supposed to be doing, working with, integrated with other players, actors and non-actors to contribute to the larger ecosystem. I thought I'll show you this one because it helps us to have that big landscape to understand what is happening. This is another way of just, trying to expand it and to find other ways of connecting the dots, how each of these bubbles are interlinked with one another. So again, we look at the government and ministries, and then we see, corporate innovation, obviously linking with multinational corporations, the local economy. So this is the impact. How are this ecosystem, these players, how are they adding value, to the labor market, to the labor economy? And that's important. That's where our GDP, is being developed. So we've seen, obviously, the entrepreneurship is really what's on the guard, all of this. The government is setting new policies, to make sure that entrepreneurship becomes a cornerstone in our curriculum, because they have discovered that actually the civil service, the public sector cannot absorb all the graduates coming out of universities. And so there has to be a paradigm shift by making it compulsory for entrepreneurship to be embedded into our curriculum. And in doing that, of course, we have obviously the business growth, the startup ventures, through entrepreneurship and universities. We begin to see new ideas, opportunity for startup businesses while students are still in university, as well as staff. Some universities that are encouraging their staff to be more creative and enterprise, to start up their own ideas. And that's why spin-off comes in, but I don't want to jump ahead of my time. So we have the private sector economic growth, and then we have the economic innovation. Okay, so these are quite, necessary for us to also understand how these are connected together. But entrepreneurship is really what connects all the dots together. We have the corporate open innovation. Okay, so through the universities, that's quite possible. Venture acceleration, we'll look at that later on. But I just wanted to show you this. So the three diagrams started from a very broad, and they're moving into the five main connected stakeholders, actors and non-actors. And this is really more or less connecting the dot wider, to see how it's fitting into perhaps the labor market. Okay, so So with that background in mind, having given you the ecosystem, I thought maybe I'll just give some example. And here I'll just be looking at some example from my own experience, through research, knowledge exchange, and what our universities, Oxford University, is currently doing or have done, so that at least you can you'll have some of the ideas as well. So curriculum, obviously because of time, I may not be able to go through all of this in depth. Curriculum development, enterprise education is very much embedded into our curriculum at undergraduate and also postgraduate, and even now into some of our PhD program. How do we do that? So the curriculum development, we have a number of courses at the undergraduate level and also postgraduate level on enterprise and entrepreneurship. Obviously, we don't call it enterprise and entrepreneurship education, but our courses are focused on that. And even within other subjects, so like my module, which is managing international organization, I have a core unit which is on enterprise SMEs at the global, at the international level. And so what I do is actually I invite a guest speaker, okay, to come and give a kind of a webinar, to my student, because they are international students, and I want to have a speaker that is well versed, has worked, internationally with a lot of experience, and I want, my student to be able to see how enterprise SMEs at the global level impact on private sector, government, and maybe multilateral agencies, for example. So when it comes to trade and investment, what is the role, for example, that maybe WTO plays, in supporting a micro business, at, maybe, for example, Accra, and I use, cocoa versus rice, between Ghana and South Korea to illustrate some of my example, and I'll show you later on. So I've embedded the enterprise even within what you normally call an international relations, international management model. Why? Because I want my students that have taken that course, when they leave, they can connect the dots. So it's not in silo. Okay, so that is at the master's level, and we do that at undergraduate level as well. So it has become a key part of making sure that our programs have enough modules that students can take that expose them to entrepreneurship, that expose them to innovation and creativity, and they can make it practical, either through encourage them to start up their own business, and we have that linked with our enterprise support, which is our main Brooks Enterprise support. You can check it online as well. So our student entrepreneurship, the curriculum development, inclusive entrepreneurship, they are all linked to startup, spin out, and incubation. But allowing the students to actually come and try their ideas, get their hands dirty, while they are still students of the university, and give them the support, all the necessary support that they need. You can see some of these pictures are really coming from what we have been doing, either through external competition, community engagement, linking with mentors, entrepreneurs, and experts to come and share their experience with our students. So we have a number of programs that we are running, catering for different needs, whether they are staff, whether they are students, whether they're alumni. So we also invite our alumni that's already in a business to come and share their journey, their entrepreneurial journey with our students. And all these are on their website. You can see that. That's why I deliberately put this. So Brooks Enterprise Support, you can have a look at them. They're out there. And we also have what is called Thrive Festival, which is an annual event, for ideas, being culminated incubation, basically an annual one. And the students have the opportunity to come and showcase their enterprise, to the community, not just in Oxford, but also will invite external to come and participate in that festival. So some of them, the one that's really caught my attention recently in the last 2 years was how we are also encouraging our PhD, our researchers, to be integrated into the enterprise. The reason being that not everyone that have done PhD or research will go on to become professors or they want to become lecturers. Some, they have done the PhD because they want to go into consultancy or perhaps to set up their own business. But if they have not been given the opportunity, maybe awareness or education on entrepreneurship, they might struggle to even be able to launch out, start up their own consultancy or advisory training. And so part of our student entrepreneurship is not just for undergraduates or MSc, but also PhD have the opportunity to embark on that. And a good example of that was a student who was doing PhD on technology and design, but he has a good interest in project management. He wants to step into project management. And so he took some time out of his PhD to enroll through the Brooks Enterprise Support for training. They support him with funding. And then obviously went through the program and is now doing his project management consultancy while also returning back to his mainstream PhD to complete it. And that's just a good example to illustrate that. So other thing we do, which I know Ashesi University is also doing very much, to try and integrate into the community, conference, training. We get our alumni very much involved in what we're doing to ask them to come and present their ideas, what they have been doing, and releasing their products and services to come and encourage our students as well as placement. Believe me, placement and internship are part of maybe raising awareness of the benefit of entrepreneurship. So if students have the opportunity to work in maybe a small, medium-sized enterprise or a boutique firm, for example, maybe business development, where they're just starting up, but they give the student the opportunity to become intrapreneur. That is, you are adding value to the innovation of a company. Okay, so you become an innovator, you become an entrepreneur within the firm. That is, they are developing their skill, they are developing their creativity, even though they are working within an organization. So through placement and internship, that could also be one way of helping our students, to become entrepreneurial. And of course, network. I know some countries in Africa, I mean, particularly in Nigeria, where I do a lot of my research, they have what is called the Enterprise Education Network. And in fact, I was one of the patron when I did my project many years ago. It was a British Council project on enterprise education for employability with Pan Atlantic University. And as a result of that project, we set up, in fact, through the participant, they set up the first enterprise education network in Nigeria. And that is still going on right now with the support of the government. So I want to believe in Ghana and other countries that that are attending this program, you can actually maybe link up or set up a network that unifies the university with the industry and other players so that the conversation can begin. And we're also mindful that there are funding and collaboration that is trying to bridge the gap between the university and industry. One of that is which, again, Ashesi University, I invited them to participate in a project or funding that we're about to embark on, is to look at the HE Innovate, which is an European project to bring in European partners with African institutions. So again, it's about fostering collaboration, strengthening partnership, and improving on our business support and funding, of course, enterprise funding between universities and industry. So again, I want to encourage institutions that are represented here today to always look out for opportunities where you can collaborate with outside organizations, businesses, in order to improve on what you are offering students at the moment. Okay, so I want to move on very quickly. So what are some of the challenges? First of all, when you talk about university industry interaction, normally most of us, we have a steady customers, suppliers. All universities have that. Who are our customers? Primarily students are customers, because without them we will not be employed. But we also have suppliers, people that supplies on our services. So when we talk about university industry interaction, some of the challenges, which again coming from research, are this simple lack of information, which is on offer from universities. People don't quite understand what are the universities offering to their suppliers, to their potential partners or collaborators outside. They just don't have that information. You can imagine if we are experiencing that in the Western world, it is even 3 times harder in developing nations, and Africa as a good example. The industry just don't have enough information. In fact, I'll say they don't know enough about what role the universities are playing in the ecosystem. And I think there's historical problem with this. One is the issue of trust. They don't trust universities enough that they can actually they can provide solution, to the industry problem. Not the other thing is the quality of information. When it talks about innovation being provided by universities, there's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of doubt, from the industry. Is this information reliable? Is it credible? Who produced it? Is it relevant for our industry? And so there are so many different viewpoints that are coming from the industry, why, and the extent to which it affects the relationship between universities and the industry and other actors as well. But generally speaking, I think that myth probably is changing now with the level of internationalization. All the universities, and most universities, are being encouraged to include internationalization into their strategy. And to be able to implement internationalization means that institutions have to, stretch themselves, force themselves out of their comfort zone to get to collaborate with other institutions, whether be it small institutions or large or medium-sized institutions within the country, in the region, and outside. So the low level of engagement with the universities, I think, are beginning to change, but obviously research has still been done on that. And it also depends on the country level, regional level, and between universities and where you are located. Okay, I just wanted to show these slides, again, coming from data, from research that have been done in the UK, which we can actually apply or begin to raise some questions. To what extent are these applicable even in the African context? So the distribution of types of collaboration. So customers, that is our normal default position. University have customers. Apart from students, we also have customers that buy into our services. So training programs, you will have customers. So if you're running training, university do that, there are customers that will attend that training. So customers, then suppliers. And then by the time you start looking at partner companies, other HEI, public research and development, and competitors, then obviously we begin to see the level of collaboration being minimized. That means the awareness, just to go back to what I mentioned before, the awareness of collaboration is not well communicated because of issues that perhaps higher education institutes are also going through within the organization to get their act in order. So I think there are so many reasons that may contribute to limited collaboration within institution. So other reasons why perhaps higher educations are not collaborating, you can look at a number of reasons here. This was done. I like this. I wanted to show this because even though it was done in the UK, it was a regional study between in Wales, the east of England and maybe northwest. But some of the reasons for non-collaboration applies across the board. The activities are not relevant for our business. So you can look at a typical micro business, a one-man business or SMEs in manufacturing, and they say, well, universities, I don't think the activities are relevant, they will not be able to solve our problem. So that is largely, top reason for not wanting to collaborate with universities to help them to think through, maybe through knowledge exchange or through consultancy. They will rather consult maybe the likes of PwC, Deloitte, all this big consultancy to come and help them than to seek help and intellectual support from university. Look at another reason. We do not know what universities have to offer. Again, communication problems because we don't disseminate our research. We don't go out there to actually speak about what we have done so that and invite industry to come and listen to our research. Collaboration is costly and time consuming. Yes, it does, because you have to invite them in, and it takes them time to take them out of their premises, out of their businesses, to come and have meetings with university professors and lecturers and researchers. But sometimes it does not necessarily cost money, because it's a two-way thing. If the industry can see the value and the sustainability of that and how it will help their business to grow, then the issue of cost shouldn't be an issue. But again, it depends on how we package that collaboration and partnership. So this is about strategic alliance, between universities and industry. There's a mismatch of objectives and expectation. This is a good where the chemistry or their divided goals and strategic goals between universities and industry definitely is not going to go anywhere. So it's like a marriage, so the goals must align together. There has to be a common objective between the two organizations. And so that tends to be low in a lot of collaboration, joint venture, or any form of strategic alliance. That mismatch of strategic goals and expectation somehow seems to be a common thread across any region in the world. Okay, universities operate in the long term. We need short-term solution. And I'm sure we can all resonate with this. Businesses want their solution right now to address the right now issue. While university, we are very long-term thinkers. We like to do things in a kind of systematic way, go through research procedure, go through funding. It's not a quick win. But even that, universities are beginning to look at different models to accommodate for the need and the changes of the industry. So it's about the flexibility. And of course, we speak different languages. So this may also apply. To what extent is this one applicable in the African context? So the key mismatch in terms of relevance, time, horizon, and expectation. And of course, when we look at the limited time and resources that SMEs have, we know that this is a major issue. So the question then is, in terms of how do we move forward, is how we can meet halfway, because obviously they need help and we also need wells. It's about joined up thinking. So how do we meet halfway, for both, to be able to benefit, from what the university can provide. Okay, so that now brings me to, to start and look at, particularly the role that university or higher education plays. Some of you that you have seen in the book on entrepreneurial universities, creating institutional innovation in times of turbulence. We look at this from and say universities actually, they are primarily in the business of three things. They are in the business of knowledge producers. We are knowledge producers. We produce knowledge. We disseminate that knowledge and we exploit. Okay, so the knowledge production in the macroeconomic, this is where value, all these three areas are where universities are playing major strategic roles. We are contributing to the knowledge production, that resolves problems in the society. We disseminate that through various means and vehicle, and we exploit for commercialization. And again, because these are important areas, they have a crucial impact even in the society when it comes to process innovation or product innovation. So universities should be able, through curriculum development, teaching and learning, research, knowledge exchange, and leadership and culture, we should be able to integrate any of this into our offering. So how does this play out? I want to just quickly introduce you to this, which is again some of the work that I've been doing with my colleague. We call it innovation triad. So it's a model of looking at the institutional environment of innovation or entrepreneurial university. So looking at these three, the simple triangle, we have the formal institutions or the formal rules versus the informal norms. And then we have the rule makers, which is primarily the policymakers, in this case, government. And then the government normally will exhaust or encourage the knowledge entrepreneurs, that is, these are industry, primarily private sectors and other players, will encourage them to be more enterprising, to be more creative, to open up businesses, that will accommodate maybe graduates, to be more entrepreneurially minded. But at the same time, rule makers also have relationship with the knowledge incubators. So this is where universities, research-based institute, and other knowledge-intensive services operate. We incubate, we produce knowledge. That knowledge is disseminated into the industry through enabling policy that the government will provide to make the macroeconomic or the economy to thrive, the society. So this is where, in terms of today's seminar, this is where we are right now. The university, the higher education, the research institute sit here, but we are not in silo. We are supposed to be communicating with the knowledge entrepreneurs, that is the industry, but also bringing in the rule makers. There are formal rules or formal institutions that will obviously influence what is happening in this institutional environment, as well as informal norms. So when you break it down, we break it into macro, meso, and micro. These are the institutional level in terms of the government, policy, regulations on education that enables or sometimes hamper institutions to want to maybe implement ideas. The meso level is at the various institutional level, and the extent to which they're able to interact with these three main areas. And then here are specific individual level experiences within various institutions. So the book is actually very laid it out in terms of the contributions that we receive. So if you're able to get the book, this will actually benefit you in terms of seeing how it can be implemented in your own institution. So I just give you example here from research. I'm not going to dwell so much on it. Actually, we need more. Stephen, maybe we need more time than this. I tend to go into detail with my talk. These are knowledge transfer as academic, that right now they are thinking, well, it's all about publication, publication, publication. Where I'm here to tell you that, the institutions are also looking at different ways of encouraging academics to just get their research out into the market. And so this comes within knowledge transfer activities. And how do we do that? It could be through scientific publications that's, maybe, patent ideas. So it can be, through, formal teaching by embedding entrepreneurship, innovation into the curriculum that allows for our graduates to be employed, informal knowledge transfer, consulting, okay? A number of institutions now, they have another stream, which is consulting services, whereby academic staff can also participate in consulting services to the industry, actually helping getting applying, taking your research into the industry to solve real life problem. And that is not done through teaching, it's not done through research, it's done through consulting services. And then, of course, spin-off is when academic, maybe they have good ideas, and especially in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths, tends to be more common, where academic staff, they want to commercialize their research through the university. So there is a system, there is a processes that enables them to be able to do that, to incubate their ideas, actually set up a company within the university. And so they call it spin-off or spin-out company. And that's really an area that I'm looking at now specifically for women in Nigeria. To what extent are they being encouraged, to commercialize their research? So we have patent, new product development, and collaborative research, just to give you some ideas on knowledge transfer. And all of these are enterprising. These are enterprising initiatives that moves us away from our traditional boxed teaching and learning, but to be more flexible, to be more creative, and to be more adaptive to what is happening in the global world. Okay, I think I'll skip this one. I wanted to use this one to help the audience to think about how the government, because we have been looking at the role of the government, how the government might be helping the mining industry, for example, in Ghana, to be not just nationally competitive, but also making the product to be maybe globally demanding and relevant. And that is through their interaction with the related and supporting industry. The SMEs, this is the cluster. These are the cluster groups. So every country will have a major industry. So I use, so it could be cocoa, for example, it could be mining. But you see that apart from the fact that we have maybe the basic endowment and the advanced endowment of education, higher level education in the mining area, which is engineering. But the government may be also be pouring a lot of money into helping SMEs, clusters, to be able to advance and to grow this mining business in Ghana. And that could be applied to any other major industry that is generating, contributing to our major GDP. So I just wanted to show that as an example. In Oxford, for example, we have clusters of businesses. And I think maybe so we have the University of Oxford, and we work collaboratively with the University of Oxford in some areas of maybe cancer research, in Venture Fest, which is like a national entrepreneurship and innovation, where businesses congregate in one place in Oxford, and is open to universities to come as well. We actually send our students to go and participate in that Venture Fest. And so this is one. And of course, it's also the BIS, which is government, has a part to play in that. But more recently is the COVID-19. The COVID-19, which is a global pandemic, and how our universities and Oxford universities and the AstraZeneca have been able to work together to bring out COVID-19 vaccination. And so that is a classic example of the Oxford cluster to bring out new innovation through research that has brought together colleagues from Oxford Brookes University and Oxford University itself, and working with private sector like AstraZeneca, and of course the government sponsoring AstraZeneca to be able to produce that vaccination. So you can still the powerful illustration of university, industry, and government collaboration, just using the COVID-19 vaccination. So again, this is innovation capability in a regional sense that is contributing to the economy, not just of Oxford, but also United Kingdom and globally. And of course, we remember, I mean, with that, it involves our researchers, our students actually playing their role in being given a perfect opportunity to bring all their research at a perfect place where they can begin to put it into practice and patent it. So there's a lot of patent of the vaccination, clinical trial, and continuous research is also going. So there's still more to be done, even with the COVID-19. Okay, let me see if I can move on from here. I think this is primarily looking at maybe working with partnership. What are the key lessons that we can take, from that? You're going to get this slide, so I'm not going to try and cover everything. Some of these actually tally with where I started by asking 3 questions. When it comes to government, governance and management, university leadership is quite vital when it comes to leadership. So for example, my university, for any funding, major funding that academic staff have to apply to, you start from your faculty level, get the buy-in and get their interest, get their endorsements, and then before you actually apply for the funding, even centrally, the university itself, you have to go through ethics procedure. You have to get even the university chancellor, depending on the scale and the funding, you have to get a very senior level to say, okay, I endorse this person to apply for the fund. So for every innovation and entrepreneurship, major one, and partnership, university leadership is vital. Some institutions, the bureaucracy and red tape can slow down innovation. And so by working with different organizations, we can begin to see how maybe flexibility can be brought in to our governance system to help to make maybe innovation and entrepreneurship quicker than expected. So that's flexibility, vision and strategy, putting the right people in charge. I remember the project, the British Council project that I did with Pan Atlantic University. We brought in academics and we trained them up in the sense that there's no way you're going to teach students to be an entrepreneur when you yourself, you don't even have a clue about entrepreneurship. You have not run a business yourself. And so putting the right academics in charge when it comes to embedding entrepreneurship or innovation into our curriculum or into our research or into our knowledge exchange is important. And those who cross boundary, interdisciplinary approach is also important. So somebody can be in the business school or business and economics, but it shouldn't just be limited to that area. You should be able to do research with somebody in maybe medicine or in psychology, so that interdisciplinarity is also very important to stretch ourselves to be able to think in terms of applying different methodology to resolve industry problems. Okay, I will leave this page. Yeah, let me move on to the next one. This really talks in about some of the impacts that collaboration can have. So development of new techniques, it helps us to improve, it should improve profitability. We are helping the organization to improve their profitability, as well as improving their market share. Introduction to new network. As universities, by collaboration, you get to know other people as well in your field, in various areas, and that helps visibility and exposure. And of course, especially now with the global challenge and sustainable development, collaboration and firms are interested in how sustainable are these solutions. So to be able to think about the environmental impact and not just the environment, the kind of the 3 pillars helps us, and sustainable development is very important. Okay, so they are useful, to have at the back of our mind in terms of how are we impacting. So when it comes to research, the impact assessment is absolutely critical. And one way we can contribute to impact is through sharing our stories, to the industry, dissemination of our research, to the industry. That is an impact. Okay, so what can I, conclude, having gone through all that? we know that this journey of the role of university, we are catching up with the rest of the ecosystem. We are still far, far behind, but we are moving in the right direction. It is a very complex situation between what we are using and what we are not using right now, and the impact and the value that we are bringing into the ecosystem through our knowledge production, dissemination, and exploitation. But it is important that higher education are open to collaboration and not allow the structural design of our institutions to impede or to hinder on how we go out there to bring in new ideas, bring new opportunities into our environment. Sometimes it may involve for us to be outspoken. It may involve us to be more proactive in getting to understand the strategy of the institution and to be able to input into the strategy development. In particular, university collaboration does have a big impact on innovative performance. Studies have confirmed that. And of course, because we are into the industry, we can see how it is linked to profitability of the firm, how it's linked into market share and societal value. We can definitely link it to our league, our ranking, for example, when you compare your audit trail and how where universities are making an impact in the industry or sector. This again will encourage our students not only to see the number of publications where we have published, but we can also see where we are making commercial impact contributing to the society. So, of course, all of this will vary regionally within Africa, even within any part of the world. Africa has its own peculiar challenges, but that challenges also brings in, peculiarity in terms of the niche area to make it more, to make a difference in the world. So in terms of policy intervention, I think the way that we can move forward is that there's no one size that fits all. Any of these models, innovation policy, innovation ideas will have to be conceptualized and adapted to our own institution as we link up with the businesses within our community and of course the government regulations and policy. Okay, so I'm going to just leave it for now. I think I've actually talked more than I expected, and I want to allow questions at this stage. So I'm going to, and I think, yeah, I'm going to stop sharing for a while, but we have received some questions, and I just, if we can maybe spend some time on those questions for now, that will be very, very useful. So I'll just allow a few people to ask questions now.
Dr. Adesola, can I ask a question?
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, my question is, how do universities and startups or student businesses share profit?
Wow, that's a good question. How do they do that? Okay, well, that's part of this. That's part of the spin-off and the commercial arrangement between the student and the university. We have to remember, first and foremost, any ideas, new spin-off, new startup business that is instituted while you are a student or even staff within the university has the overall right over it, intellectual property over it. But within that also comes the negotiation between the innovator and the university, whether that be 80-20 or 70-30. It depends on the institutions, how they want to play it. If the university thinks, well, this is a niche idea that they don't want to lose, they might be flexible and be fair in maybe arranging 50-50 sharing of profit, because they can see the long-term implication I know some, for example, in my locality, where I did my PhD many, many years ago, Cranfield University, very, very strong on spin-off and commercialization. And so university even have an industrial side that makes it possible for students, staff to have their base, for ideas generation. And so our university, also Oxford University, right now, we are conceptualizing that. We call it Idea Lab. And that is to allow students or staff, to be able to begin to, if they have an idea, come forward. We are ready to support you. So it now comes on, the agreement, and that's where the legal lawyers within university will need to obviously help us to understand the legal ramification of that, and to be able to decide, is it best for you to actually spin off that initiative within the university, or perhaps do you want to step out of the university and start it off? That will require a bit of maybe advice from lawyers as well, not just to limit yourself to the university legal requirements. I think it's good to seek outside uh, legal advice as well in terms of which one will pay you. But there are benefits to do it within university because the support system will be there. Just like one of our professors in the area of microbiology, started off our own commercial business, actually with her husband, because both of them are they are in science and they are both academics. And so they started many, many years ago with the support of the university. And that company is still part of the university. Obviously, step out of the premises of the university. They have their own base within Oxford, but there's still support from the university to support that initiative. So I think that's probably what I would say. It depends on the commercial agreement. I hope that answers the question. Thank you very much. I think I'll use this opportunity to make some of the questions which were posted before the session. One of it was the funding model for entrepreneurship, specifically for incubators. I think I probably have answered part of that just now. Again, universities will have resources, funding to help students and academic staff that want to commercialize the idea. So again, I'll give you, it's probably not funding, but I'll give you another example. A colleague within the business school, out of his research, which has to do with happiness. Happiness is common to all. Everybody wants happiness. And so one of these findings was about happiness. And what he's doing right now is actually to develop a workshop, a training program around happiness. And that has become a training program. Okay, so the university is helping to make that training to be publicly available. Okay, that is the way. So it may not be cash, but it could be in kind, to help the staff to commercialize their research. Another question which was raised is how other institutions create a culture of entrepreneurship among their students. How other institutions create a culture of entrepreneurship. I think that starts, I'll use my university as an example, if that will help. It starts from a top-down approach. So our mission and our vision for Oxford Brookes University changed, okay? Our 2035 strategy changed, meaning that we have included entrepreneurship into our institutional strategy. So that is a big asking. It means that our university has recognized and we have accepted that we are fully committed to make our university an entrepreneurial university. So from a top down, everything has to be, it has to cascade down to every faculty and every directorate. So that is about changing the culture of the organization to embed entrepreneurship and innovation into the strategy of the institution. I want to try and catch up with the chat as well.
I actually have a question. I raised my hand.
Yes, please.
My name, I'm Dr.
If you want to show your video as well, I don't mind.
Yes, unfortunately, I wasn't quite prepared for that. My name is Tabiela Makiwa from the Netherlands. I work at a
Good.
of Applied Sciences, and I had actually put some questions in the chat, only that I now realize that I didn't address them to everyone. So I'll just ask them directly. I think thank you for this really very excellent presentation. I think the need, there's a lot has been said about the need to develop employable skills to build capacity that is relevant to developing our African economies, and to move away from very theory-heavy curricula where you have graduates who unfortunately do not have such employable skills. And that's one of the challenges we have in capacity building in Africa. And I was wondering what is the interface between ESOs and entrepreneurship support systems and so on, and technical and vocational training and education? That's the first question. And to the second question, you spoke about, and I think it's very important that yes, graduates should, or staff graduates should own what they should have some a way of should we say leveraging their research. But then this obviously would lead to, I think, very clear conflicts of interest, and which may actually affect the quality of academic research, where you have a vested interest in the output. So I really wonder about that aspect of the model. So those are my two questions.
Right, thank you very much. Let me start with the second question, which addresses conflict of interest. So when it's a conflict of interest, are you referring to academics in this case?
I'm actually referring to the academics, because if you are a consultant that is leveraging your own research, and you enter into, for example, a long-term project, which your research is feeding into, there is a conflict of interest, because you're being paid. Your objectivity is questionable. Essentially, the layers of protection when you get a subsidy from, let us say, from a granting body, is very different from when you're actually being paid directly as a consultant for your research. So I think it's a very different framework. And the question is, how on as an academic not at least have an appearance of a conflict? How valid research results? How objectively have you looked at it? It's just a question. It's like a slippery slope, and I wonder what your thoughts are.
Well, I can only contribute to that question, which is a very good and interesting, challenging question. But I can only maybe add one or two things through our own processes and system, how we go around this. So normally we have a research stream, we have knowledge exchange. So through the knowledge exchange, you can participate in consultancy. Now, if you want to do consultancy, you have to declare your interest. So there will be a pro forma form, so because you can do consultancy just independently, that is maybe based on your research, just like I did, share your example of the happiness project. The happiness project was done by a colleague. It was a finding from his research. But then through conversation with the school, and they accepted it, he was able to do it to start with initially. He was able to do it from his own as a kind of self-consultancy. But now that it's gaining momentum outside of Brooks, it's publicly available to anyone that wants to undertake, go on the training. He has to go on another kind of an agreement with the business school to complete kind of a maybe conflict of interest, because maybe now that we are seeing that, wow, this is becoming popular. So now it becomes a university consultancy, and he is just a facilitator of that. So that is kind of a, so you have a way that you have to declare your conflict of interest. Now, when it comes to public funding, yes, so public funding, again, the project that I have been involved with, they will ask, the funder will ask questions. What is your motivation for entering into that project? For example, And if you have a declaration, if you have a conflict, obviously you declare it, and then it's up to them to say, well, actually that's okay, that's fine. But I haven't experienced any such, cases where perhaps I see myself as directly being impacted, or it will affect that project, and because of that, I will not be able to participate. But I believe that the main funding bodies will have procedure in place to be able to make sure that academic staff will not be, I don't want to use the word abuse their position, to profit, from a research. Obviously, commercialization of our ideas is to bring profit. It's definitely going to bring profit. Now, that profit is whether that profit is going to be shared with the university or not. That's part of my answer to the first question, that it depends on the commercial agreements and whether that idea is being patent, because if it's patent, especially in the science area, then we're looking at long-term implication here. And obviously, the university might want to make sure that, there is no other conflict of interest. And if there is, they might ask for, other reasons, why you should be part of that project. And then there might be other areas to still get you involved, but without being the main stakeholder in that project.
Thank you.
The first question on technical education, can you just repeat that, make it clearer exactly what?
Well, in the Netherlands, for example, we have two types of universities, and I believe that used to be the case in the UK, where Oxford Brookes used to be the Oxford Polytechnic and is now a university. So one is very much focused on developing graduates that go directly into the labor market, whereas the other is more research oriented, focused on pushing the boundaries of knowledge and so on and so on. So when I speak about technical and vocational education, I'm really speaking to those type of graduates that are immediately relevant to the job market. So when you speak about entrepreneurship, support organizations, that whole ecosystem, it seems to me to be very much, at both levels, but certainly when we look at the level of our economy and the type of capacity building we need, in our economy, we need people who are able to, engineers who can actually, build things. We need people who can actually create things and so on. I think there's a gap that we have in technical and skills. And I was wondering how what you have described now addresses this legacy issue of very much theory-heavy, exam-focused curricula that are not so much to develop competencies and employable skills, but are more focused on theory, knowledge, and so on.
Excellent question. I think, probably I didn't put much emphasis on the vocational education, which is absolutely paramount, because not all the students can be academically inclined. And again, this brings me back to the project when we're doing enterprise education for employability. It came out very, very strong because the academics, the lecturers that came on that program, we had representatives from the various universities and even polytechnics in Nigeria that took part in that project. And we have industry, to come and just observe and participate in that project. And a number of the questions relates to technical and vocational education. To what extent is the current entrepreneurship education catering for that? And to that extent, part of the reasons is also the government were also looking at, they were seeing the gaps in the university mainstream education and technical, the TVE education. So I want to believe each region in Africa is through the government policy, the influence of government policy, we are seeing a kind of a model which is being applied to technical and vocational education. So carpentry, for example, beauty, for example, manufacturing, technical education, what I mean, like Yabatech, it's a good example for those who know Yabatech. Is in Nigeria. We had representatives, and when the time that I used to go to Yabatech, for projects, you see real example of innovation, of creativity, at work, student actually putting their ideas into creativity. And so it makes you wonder, why is the government not putting more investment in colleges like this in Yabatech, which is equivalent to university, really? And so I think there's a shift, and there's a call, a need for more resources, more investment in technical and vocational education through entrepreneurship and government policy to enable such it to happen. So in the West, for example, I think there's increasing need for apprenticeship. So rather than BA, BSc programs, now we are seeing embedding or even introducing new programs which have apprenticeship involved, or maybe 1 year break from your career. Go out there, go to the industry and actually test your ideas, so that it's not just you spend 3 years in university and you come out, you cannot even apply it, to the others. That's a wasted time. So we are beginning to develop new programs, which is apprentice-based, even at the up to MBA level now in my university. So we have MBA that is going to be more of apprentice-based, and we have people that are rushing to even embark on that one. And then a lot of our programs, we have apprenticeship. And that's because we want to make sure that our students are more outward focused, and perhaps the theory is still there, but let that be applied theory. Okay. Each institution will have particular strength. So if the strength of the university is more on vocational and technical education, then of course they have to develop that competence more on applied theory, more on apprenticeship, more on bringing industry to contribute to curriculum development, as opposed to academics trying to figure everything out. And I think we need to, we are moving into that as well. But just like polytechnics, somehow the branding of TVE or polytechnic, they are not the way they have not been recognized, compared to universities. And I think that's narratives also needs to change, to recognize that the industry needs apprentice, the industry needs vocational education, and the industry needs hands-on people, because these are the people that actually makes day-to-day work, to be, for the economy to be moving on a day-to-day work. So I hope that answers your question.
Very, very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think I have a few questions here. Right, okay. One question, particularly in the African context, do you have any ideas on how to incentivize private companies to partner with education institute for the development of innovation? I may have mentioned it before. I think network is important. For academics, it begins from maybe writing papers, for example. Look out for partners outside, academics outside your institution to partner with publications, attend conferences. That is also a way of making yourself visible. In attending conferences, you see who is who in the marketplace, in your field, in the discipline. And then from there, obviously, you attend maybe commercial industry conferences as well, where these are the real movers and shakers, and you listen to what they need, what do they need really. And then if you have the opportunity, maybe you are invited as a guest speaker, it means that you are trying to bridge the gap between this knowledge producer and the knowledge entrepreneurs, because these are the real people, and we need to speak more to the real entrepreneurs in the marketplace. But I think it's not a quick fix. It's a gradual journey that we all have to just get ourselves out of our comfort zone with the university or higher education or our respective institution to go into the industry. But I think liaising with outside organization definitely will help on that. I'm going to finish with maybe one or two more questions from the pre-program question that we had. How much that contributes to youth employability? I think I've mentioned it a lot in terms of graduate employability. The main focus now across every HEI is how we can reduce graduate unemployment. And so there are many, many ways that we can reduce that. One is to make sure that they are ready for the workplace, not through the theory alone. It's good to have the theory. They have to apply their theory. But actually, if they enter into the workplace tomorrow and say, okay, I'm giving you the task, can they actually solve that problem? Okay, so I believe through entrepreneurship and innovation and creativity, we are preparing them to think like a real business person and to be able to solve real life problems with the global challenges that is happening around us, climate change. To what extent are they actually, you know, being taught about climate change, sustainable development goals, looking at the dotted lines in the 17 goals on the United Nations and how that is linked to entrepreneurship and innovation. So I think it's about changing the orientation of the youth as well to the drive and the zeal, to want to learn. I know that some of the universities that I've visited in Africa, we are still challenged in terms of our student learning space. The environment for learning is not there yet. But for those who are privileged to be in maybe private universities or federal universities, depending on the country of your choice, or whether it's outside Africa as well, we need to do more to engage better with our graduates, with our final year students, to think long term in terms of how they can make use of their creativity and their gift to think of new ideas, new service, whether as an entrepreneur or intrapreneur working for companies, but they are adding value to the productivity and innovation of that organization. Okay, what advice will you have for a university that is just starting up in Africa to incorporate entrepreneurship as part of the student experience? Right, I think Ashesi is a very good university to use as a classic example. I had two of their colleagues yesterday at a consortium project that we are thinking about, and it's quite inspiring because we have the head of that institution who is aspiring to make a difference in Africa, okay? Doing something different, but from ethical leadership. I believe in integrity, I believe in ethics. And so how can we make our university different when industry, the so-called knowledge entrepreneurs, want to collaborate with university? They want to be able to trust us that we can do business with university, we can do business with polytechnics, we can do business with any other research institute. And that trust, integrity is birthed in ethics, ethical leadership. So top-down approach, I think, is a starting point, because the students are looking at the website to see who is the vice chancellor, who is the head, what is their background, what their research faculty, the academics, they read about us. And they look at the students that come out of our university. Where are they well placed? Where are they right now? What are the stories that are being said about samples of students and where they are being located? I think that will begin to give them some measure of trust to say, and we're encouraging our researchers to speak, through something like this, encouraging academic staff to, engage in sharing their research findings and go out there, sponsor them, pay for them to attend conferences, to write papers, if they have to pay for that publication, to write it, to contribute to writing blogs, so there are just so many areas. And I think through that, when students are thinking of applying to university, they can look at through LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram to see faculty. And that may begin to encourage them to want to, start up And of course, role models, mentors are also very, very important. I know we haven't talked much about that, but the power of mentors, people that have, maybe they have been successful in startup while they are university, showcase them more. And that will encourage them, invite them to your institution to come and talk to current students, their challenges, their barriers, and where they are going. Make use of mentor, make use of those alumni. Very, very powerful. The last question here is, interested in exploring the nature of the leadership role that academia should play in the larger entrepreneurship ecosystem. Well, okay, I think I've addressed that. So any other question before we finish? I've taken quite a few of your time. I was hoping that we'll be able to complete the entrepreneurial assessment, which is a self-assessment one. I will quickly show you the screen because it's something that you can do in your own time. So just bear with me. I'm just trying to find where it is. Okay. I'm sure Stephen will send you a link to this website. It's an online self-reflection tool. It's part of the European Horizon project on HEI Innovate, Entrepreneurial University. It gives institutions the opportunity to self-assess their current situation and their potential action, areas for action. So there are 8 dimensions, to start the assessment. Okay, you have the leadership and governance, organizational capacity, entrepreneurial teaching and learning, how we prepare and support our entrepreneurs, the extent to which we use digital transformation and capability, knowledge exchange, consultancy will fit in here, and other collaboration, the internationalized institution, to what extent are we an international organization? Do we have an international strategy into our vision and mission? How do we measure impact? How do we measure impact? So this 8 dimension, you can choose one of these, just to start it off. Okay, there is no ranking and there's no benchmark. It just sets you in a systematic way of self-assessing. You can do it as an individual. You can do it as a group within your institution. And that, I think, is a good way to start the entrepreneurial university journey. Where are you currently in your path to play your role in the ecosystem? So like I said, there's no ranking, but at least it gives you a measure to begin to think about action to put in place. And that's where I'm going to stop today. So that website is http://heinnovate.eu. Okay. And I'm sure Mr. Stephen will provide, this slide will be made available and you can complete it online at your own time. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm hoping that in the time that we have, we can take some key insights on partnership. We can look at your current management and governance. We can look at our teaching and learning to see what areas do we need to improve on. How do we enhance our student experience through entrepreneurship? What are the enablers? We can look at our academics, the staff that are teaching entrepreneurship. Are they trained to teach on entrepreneurship? If they are not, then can we create a workshop, a training program, for them? You can look at our research. To what extent are students, whether it is through dissertation, are we encouraging students, to even do dissertation on entrepreneurship? Because they have ideas, good ideas. And, could it be that maybe they have worked in the summer or somewhere and they want to come back and write something about it? Let's encourage them. That is still enterprising. Okay, so dissertation, research, teaching and learning, knowledge exchange, consultancy, and looking inwardly in terms of the enabling environment that our institution provide to make it happen. And I hope that will foster a good opportunity to begin that conversation where it's not currently in place.